I'm here with Marnie Schneider, the daughter of Susan Tose Spencer and the granddaughter of Leonard Tose. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for having me. It's such a privilege, pleasure, all of it.
Absolutely. And, of course, it's Women's Month, especially talking about women in sports now. And your mother, a trailblazer, really just set the mark for a lot of women who want to be in sports. Can you just give us a little bit of background of her, what she was able to do, and really how she set the mark?
Well, thank you. Yes, my mom, Susan, really definitely is a trailblazer for women and for men and anybody that really wants to make something happen. So my mom started off as a teacher and she loved being a teacher. And I think it was a great platform for her because she became, a great teacher and was very loved by her students, and then wanted more, then became a tennis dress designer and an entrepreneur. And then ended up, we left Philadelphia. We left Florida, moved to Philadelphia. And my mom said, I think I'm going to go to law school. And at the same time, my grandfather said, okay, that's a great idea. You want to come work at the Eagles? And my mom took a kind of a low-level internship job working for some of my grandfather's lawyers at the Philadelphia Eagles while she was in law school, and then graduated from law school. And at the time, my grandfather was in a position to put somebody in this general manager spot. And he looked around and thought, hey, my mom is really the most qualified. Yes, it was his daughter. My mom was his daughter, but the most qualified for that job. And my mom took over as Eagles vice president, legal counsel, and general manager of the team.
And that's huge because she is the only woman general manager in history, including now, we're in 2021, but still the only woman general manager in NFL history. Can you talk about how it was during that time? If she shared any stories with you, just being a woman in that position, especially during a time that it wasn't as prevalent.
Well, my mom was my mom is an amazing leader. I say was only because she was in that position. And my mom, thankfully, is still alive. She does have frontal lobe dementia and lives with me, and I get the privilege of being her caregiver. But at the time, I think my mom was doing things that were kind of considered a little bit different than the way other people led their team, which is my mom would, have kind of social hours on the weekends and have social hours on Friday and make everybody know how valuable they were, which might be a more feminine trait, than how the traditional man running the office isn't going to necessarily be like, hey, everybody, let's go meet for happy hour or whatever it is, or come in my office and let's have some wine on a Friday or hang out. So I think that for me, I got an opportunity to see my mom in this incredible position as a female in power. Now, that did not go over very well in a city like Philadelphia. They were often very difficult with my mom because she was in charge of negotiating contracts, bringing people in, hiring people, firing people. And as a woman, when you have that responsibility, sometimes you get labeled as, not necessarily the nicest word. My mother is breathtakingly beautiful, so I think that was also a little bit disarming. So she's beautiful and she's educated and her dad owns the team. So there were all these kind of interesting things that were being thrown at my mom because of how she was trying to be a leader, and also at the end of the day, make the team valuable fiscally. Because at the time, people were not running football teams necessarily like a business. It was really a hobby. It was an event, something to go do on Sunday. But my mom really tried to, and she really did, turn the Philadelphia Eagles into a real money-making machine.
And you kind of talk about those labels, about how the city of Philadelphia wasn't really welcoming to her, especially, being a woman. A lot of the times you get on this front where people are like, oh, she's just a woman, that's why she got the job, or she's pretty, or she's the daughter of Leonard Tose, that's why she got the job, when they don't really see all the behind the scenes work that she most likely put in. So how does she deal with that, knowing that she put in so much work to be in this position and then having to hear the outside noise?
I think, what my mom would always say is that you'd have to just consider the source. And, here's the deal. My grandfather, in spite of her being a woman, in spite of her being, beautiful and all these other things, looked around and said, she is the most qualified for this job. She's a lawyer. My mom, at the time, general managers were not lawyers. Now they're all lawyers, all of them. my mom really did break that kind of mold. This was in, 81, 82, 83. And now all GMs of teams if you're not a lawyer, it's going to be very difficult to be to have that position. So she was very, very qualified. I think that it was hard for her. Look, nobody likes to be, picked on or whatever it is. But I think at the end of the day, my mom knew that she was doing a really good job. They were trying to build a really successful team. They were trying to negotiate great deals, which is what, as a business person, that's really what your job is. Negotiate great deals, get the best talent, and get people to show up at the game to cheer on the team. And she did all that.
Absolutely. And you talk about the reaction of the fans in the city. How was the reaction of the players, having a woman in that position? Were they accepting? Did they work well with her? Does she have any stories about players during her time?
Yeah, I think the players, my mom was somebody that would, with my grandfather, that the two of them, they really wanted to give the players the best equipment, the best of whatever possible, to give them the best opportunity on the playing field. And that was really what it was about. It was like, okay, we're going to buy the best equipment. We're going to have the best trainers. We're going to give them the best food. We're going to treat their families better than anybody else. And that's why I think my grandfather and my mom got, such recognition as being great team owners, because they knew that it was really about the players and their families and also the fans. So I think that when you do those things and you take care of the people that are within your organization, sometimes there is a little bit of pushback on the outside, like, oh, they're paying that guy too much money, or, oh, they don't know what they're doing. But truthfully, when you're in the inner sanctum, you know what you're doing, because you want to protect the player's family and them. And when you show them that they matter by taking care of them, their family, getting them the best equipment, getting them certainly the best training table meals, getting them the best trainers, and traveling luxuriously, those are just like the little things that I think, the little nuances that they did at the Philadelphia Eagles when my grandfather was owner, that was different than other teams were doing. And so they kind of became the team that people wanted to go play for. They wanted to go to Philadelphia because they knew they were going to get steak and lobster, win or lose, on Sunday on the way back from wherever, from San Francisco or wherever. They were getting steak and lobster and a lot of beer. And I think that as a result, the players did become friendly with my mom, and my mom has a great relationship with them. A lot of the players that played for her, whether it was Wilbur Montgomery or Mike Quick or even Merrill Reese or Vince Papale, those guys are part of like our thread of family, and they're still part of the family. So it's really amazing that I get to now socialize with them, and they were my mom's friends and my grandfather's friends. And I can see why, because they're amazing people who not only cared about putting on a great product on the field, but they also give back to the community. And I think that that was another thing that they were doing in Philadelphia well before other teams were doing it. I mean, in 1974, my grandfather started the very first Ronald McDonald House, and that's a whole other conversation we'll have. But I think that that was why people wanted to be on the Philadelphia Eagles, because of what they were doing off the field, philanthropy wise, and on the field, team wise.
And, especially in today's age, but really just dating back to that time, football is so much more than just stats and wins and losses. Like you said, these families, they're looking for a place to live, maybe raise a daughter or a son. It's so much more than just going out and playing a football game. They want to feel like part of that family. And it seems like your mom and your grandfather were really able to set that culture.
I think so. I mean, I think that ultimately, you have to think about like how, first of all, this was in the 70s and 80s. And again, things were different. So now you have all this technology, but people are moving from all over the country to a new city. So when they got to Philadelphia, it was really the responsibility of the team owner, my grandfather and my mom, to let everybody know that they were, part of our family, our extended family. And that meant, again, whether it was connecting with Fred Hill, who played football for the Eagles, who was from California, whose daughter was sick, and helping them find a way to raise money for leukemia, which is how Eagles Fly for Leukemia started, and then the Ronald McDonald House, or making sure that family members were taken care of, whatever it was. That was kind of the job of the front office. And that was really how the whole team, top to bottom, they were all about giving back. And Coach Vermeil certainly set that trend as well. Very much so.
Absolutely. And you talked a little bit about Merrill Reese before. I actually just got off the phone with him a little bit ago, and he talked about Susan a little bit. And he said, she was a fantastic businesswoman, talked about that law degree, what she really did to set the tone. But he also said that she was just a great person. She was focused when she had to do her job. But at the end of the day, she was nice. She was never cocky. She was always humble. So can you give us a little bit of insight on the person and the mom that Susan Tose was and is?
Well, my mom is obviously, she's my best friend, and she was certainly an amazing mother. I mean, at that time, like you have to, single working mom. So she would take me to work, and that's what, single moms do. They take their kids to work. And I got an opportunity to see my mom at work, and her environment was, different than other people's environment. But she also really went out of her way to make sure that I was always taken care of, that I was always a priority. All of my friends from growing up in Philadelphia love my mom. They still, obviously are very connected to me, and I'm so grateful for that, but really truly reach out and want to make sure that my mom is okay and ask about my mom. And they learn so much from my mom. And she was such a great speaker. Before, like, there were women out there doing that public speaking thing, my mom was always coming to my school. I went to Episcopal in Philadelphia, and speaking to the students and making herself available. And I think that that's what made her unique, is that Meryl's right. My mom is really humble. She was not somebody that was haughty or a phony. She was a real, roll up your sleeves, get in there, get the job done. Let's have some fun, and let's see what happens. And that's really how she has always led her life. And I really think that that's, I'm sorry about my dog.
It's okay.
Guys, hey, take it easy. They get excited when I talk about my mom too. They love her as well. She's somebody that really does do everything possible to make a difference. And that was really her whole thing, was like, if you're going to do something, show up, be there, be present, be involved, and make a difference. Otherwise, you're just kind of an empty shirt, and no one likes that.
Right. And for you, you kind of had your own path in sports. Now, did that come from your grandfather and your mom, or just have you always been passionate about working in sports growing up?
Well, I think that certainly, it's definitely in my DNA. And obviously, I had this incredible opportunity to travel around with my mom, going from city to city and seeing what was going on. My mom was a teacher, like I said, prior to becoming, her position at the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think education, travel, tourism, all those things, writing, reading, those were big parts of my life growing up. And as far as me understanding at a young age that if I could speak just a little bit of sports, in particular football, it was going to get me into places I wanted to be in and get me out of places, that I wanted to be out of, or whatever that is. But I think that, so it was a natural for me I went to Penn State, and then I graduated. I studied journalism there. And then I went to go work for NFL Films. And, my grandfather was very close with Ed Sable. They were best friends, and getting an opportunity to go work for NFL Films and to be part of that. I worked for Steve for a couple of years, learned an incredible amount from him, and then realized that, like, sports is really something that I'm so grateful to have that knowledge, that I wanted to then translate that into some of the other things that I do. In addition to being very involved in the Ronald McDonald House, getting a chance to share my love of travel and tourism, we started writing Football Freddy and Fumble the Dog, our game day books, which was based on my experience going to different cities, learning about the different great sites in those places, and then educating young readers on the virtues of football, just a little bit, like beach entry football is how we call it. But, again, it's the universal language. If you can speak a little bit of sports, it's going to take you very far. It certainly has with me, I believe. Hopefully.
Definitely. And you talked about your books a little bit, traveling to different cities, being a daughter of a general manager. Can you go more in depth on that? Just how was that, being a kid and being able to see all these things that most children are not able to see? Well,
that is definitely true. I would say this, that, like, I think that, in any business, when you're a child and your parents are in that business, it doesn't necessarily sink in as much as kind of being an outsider. So I was definitely an insider, and I guess I still am. There's only been, less than 100 people that have ever owned NFL teams. What I would see with my mom is this incredible work ethic. And that's what I would say, about my mom, is that on Fridays when it was an away game, I would, get to the stadium, we'd get on the team bus. She traveled my grandfather might have met us there on, some other way of transportation, but she was always traveling with the team. So I think that what my mom showed me and taught me, and what I got to see, was really how much of a grind it is. It seems so glamorous to everybody, but it's not. I mean, there are glamorous elements of it, but it's like you're getting on a plane, you're traveling, you're working, you're learning this, you're doing that, you're dealing with all sorts of stuff. You're handling, when you get to a new city, now suddenly you're dealing with hotel rooms for all these people, making sure that the food is right, making sure that their situation, it's really, truly, it's about making sure everybody else is taken care of, making sure they can get into practice, making sure that then when you leave, you have the right amount of money, because it's still a business. Like, you want to leave there with the money. And back in the old days, they would just hand you some briefcases of cash and thank you very much. But then it's waiting in the tunnel, getting on the plane late at night, these long plane rides from wherever you are, and really dealing with all of that. That's kind of what I got to experience, that there are amazing, luxurious experiences with it, but that it's so much of it is all the preparation and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So that at 9:00 at night, when you're getting on a plane in San Diego, California, and you're flying all night long with a bunch of guys that are exhausted and tired, that's not really so glamorous, but that's their job, and they sign up for that, and they're grateful for that. And that's what I really got to see, all this grit and sweat and determination. And they will give everything. They would trade anything in their lives just to do that all over again and again and again.
And that's a great point, because you hit it right on the mark, that a lot of people, they see the wins, they see the losses, they see what you do, what you let them see, really. But there's no behind the scenes camera of the grind and the gritty work that you really actually have to put in to make things go along.
It's all, I mean, that's the thing. It's all about the grind and the chipping away and the late nights. And, every time you play a football game, it is, it's a hard game. It is definitely a very challenging game. Just the conditions outside and everything else. Just forget, I mean, the elements can play a huge part in the game. And then, you're trying to win. You got to win. That's it. It's like they say, it's, when I moved to California, it was actually funny. I went to Starbucks and I got a drink, and I saw somebody had written on the cup NFL. And I was like, NFL? I'm like, why are they writing NFL on the cup? Because my brain just thinks football. It was a non-fat latte. But and I was like, who's getting the NFL? Why are they putting NFL on the cup? But again, it's like, because everything in your brain is like, it's football, football, football. And that's why it was really important for my mom to make sure that everybody was really taken care of, including Merrill Reese. Merrill's part of the team. I mean, he was traveling with the team, doing all this, preparation to know who was playing, who was hurt, who was this, what was going on. And those are the things that people don't see. They just see the beautiful fur coats, rolling off the G6s. And that's not really how it is. It's really not.
Yeah. And I think that's sometimes what makes the work so rewarding, when you see that final product, because as a person working in the industry, you really know how much it takes to get to that eventual goal.
Yeah. And okay, let's be real. Everything in life is about sacrifice and discipline, and then do it again. Sacrifice and discipline. And you have to keep doing it, and then reinventing yourself. And that's what's so much about professional sports, or really anything, is all about sacrifice and discipline. And when you get those two, when they kind of merge, that's when you have real success. And I think that one of the things that I got to, it was such a luxury, is that I had the opportunity to see, what was really going on, how you were going to take this hard work, the preparation, and then where it meets on the field, and to have success. And let's be real, even with those things, you might still have losing season after losing season. And that's where I think we're having that grit and determination. And what I love about football is that it really, you have 4 chances to go 10 yards. And guess what? That's like life. Like, I love talking about football in life terms, because you get 4 chances. And for the most part, you're probably going to get, just like in life, another 4 chances. Unless you really blow it, you're not, but you're probably going to get another 4 chances to go 10 yards. And just, you keep plugging away and moving down the field. And those are the things that, like, I learned at a young age from watching my grandfather and my mom and these great athletes, world-class athletes, really, roll up their sleeves and dig in and say, okay, every day we're going to give it our best, and we're going to do what we can to have a winning team. because that's what they want to do for the city, because it's about the fans. Like bringing home the Lombardi is for the fans. It's not necessarily, you know, they say, which is true, the Lombardi weighs 7 pounds, but it takes an entire team, an entire city to lift it.
You probably have to love it, knowing that it's going to take all of that work and all that preparation just to get where you really want to.
Well, I just think, again, it's like football is like life. And that's what Coach Lombardi said. You know, it takes all these things to get to where you want to be. And if you're not willing to put in the hard work and the preparation, then football's not for you. But it's a great sport to watch. And that's what I love. You know, I love going to games. I love watching the whole thing. I love being able to share my experiences. You know, we started writing, you know, my mom is my co-author on my books, and I've been doing a lot of Zoom readings with all these different classrooms all over the country about Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or whatever it is. And the common theme is that the kids, you know, love it because they're kind of like, they're getting what we like to describe it at game day is that it's a brownie made with vegetables, so that these kids are think they're eating a brownie, but they're really getting all their servings of vegetables, because they're learning about history and they're learning about these things and they're learning about football and the kind of that common language that we can all speak. And if, again, like I always say, sports is the universal language. So if you can speak a little bit of sports, you're just going to have an opportunity to have more conversations with people. And the more conversations you have with people, the better chances you are of succeeding in life.
Right. And going back to your mom real quick, you know, she has had, I'm sure, so many memories, so many moments, so many stories that probably could go on for days and days talking just about how much of an impact she really made. But does she have one particular or a few particular stories that stand out to her, some of her favorite moments working as a general manager, even working under your grandfather, Leonard Tose?
Well, I think, you know, okay, I would say that she would be really proud of the fact that she was one of the first people that eyeballed Randall Cunningham and had the opportunity to bring him to Philadelphia. So the team was kind of in transition of being sold, but Randall ended up in Philadelphia as a direct result of my mom, my grandfather, you know, the front office people there in Philadelphia. So that's something she's very proud of. And she still has a relationship with Randall. And, you know, his legacy is incredible in Philadelphia, but his legacy beyond is really extraordinary. You know, Randall is one of the, you know, most unique and amazing athletes of all time. So I think she'd be very proud of her contribution to get Randall Cunningham to Philadelphia. Merrill, I mean, she would always say that she and Merrill would go play tennis. I don't know if he brought that up to you, but
he did, yeah. This morning he talked about it, yeah.
Yeah, that they would, wherever, you know, she would say, Merrill, bring your rackets. And if they, you know, bring your rackets, we're going to play. We're going to sneak off for a little bit. We're going to not talk football. We're going to go play tennis. And Merrill's a great tennis player and a great athlete. Merrill Reese is a great athlete. People don't know that about him, but he's an incredible tennis player. And my mom was a great tennis player. So they would go and do things that I think were just normal activities. And that, in this day and age, it's harder, I think, to create those normal activities. And my mom, you know, really made sure that the normal activities were part of my childhood. Certainly, like, I never flew first class. I was in the last seat. It wasn't like I was up there. I was in the last seat with my bag of batteries and a Walkman next to the bathroom. That's where I was sitting, with a notepad and a Sharpie if I was lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your mother sounds like the utmost professional. She sounds like a great woman. And I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by her story and just what you have to share.
Well, thank you. She really is. I think truthfully, just getting the fact out, like when Kim Ng was hired at the Miami Marlins, a lot of people did not know about my mother's history. A lot of people did, but even Major League Baseball did a correction, because then they realized, they were like, oops, wait a minute. There was somebody prior to Kim, and it is Susan Tose Spencer. And people want to, I think that her legacy is really important for me. So thank you for giving me a platform to share her legacy, because it's not just one of, being the daughter of an owner. It's one of really, truly doing all the work, and also being a woman's woman. She was great to other women. And I think that that's something that can often get, difficult. Women, we have a really hard time in a lot of different situations. So sometimes women are not so good to each other. And I think my mom really set the tone, certainly at the Philadelphia Eagles and all our other businesses, of being good to other people. My grandfather would always say, civility is not a sign of weakness. And I think my mom really carried out that motto and really made sure that that was part of her daily, daily routine, was to make sure that everybody knew they were important. And for me, it's really important to make sure that everybody knows that, in the early 80s up until the mid 80s, there was this incredible woman, Susan Tose Spencer, my mom, my beautiful mother, who was doing things that were well ahead of the curve. And, also fighting a lot of battles, and, truly doing anything is difficult. And when you're a female in a powerful position, they would refer to my mom. And at the time, the Eagles played football at Veterans Stadium. They would refer to my mom as the Wicked Witch of the Vet. And that would make me cry and cry. I'd be so sad. I'm like, why are they doing that? Why? And it was because she was tough, and I think that being tough was considered to be like, not what women do, but ultimately it was what she did. And it was really, truly the Eagles. And I will say this, the Eagles are in Philadelphia, okay, to this right now, where there was an opportunity to leave the city of Philadelphia in the mid 80s. The Eagles are in Philadelphia because of my mother. And that is a fact. And, that is a total fact. She was able to kind of save the whole thing and keep them in Philadelphia through negotiating a great deal with the city of Philadelphia, which the Phillies got. So there are so many things about my mom's legacy that people don't know. And I'm really proud that I can share that with you and hopefully share that with a lot of people. It's why I've been writing all these kids' books to get my mom's legacy out there too. And I'm really proud of her. And I'm proud of all the women that have kind of literally picked up the ball and run with it since then. And the Eagles have been notorious for being great for women to work with. Mimi Box was there for a long time. There have been so many amazing women that are at the Philadelphia Eagles. And now, I would say that Charlotte Jones, even though the Eagles and the Cowboys have, certainly divisional rivalry, that Charlotte really has done an amazing job with the Dallas Cowboys. And I do think that whether she knows it or not, a lot of it has to do with the fact that my mom was there prior to, not at Dallas, but really carving out a path for women in the NFL.
Every Philadelphia Eagles fan can thank your mother for them not moving to Arizona, because, there's a lot of Eagles fans, the city of Philadelphia, the blue collar community. They can thank Susan Tose Spencer for keeping them in the city of Philadelphia.
Well, thank you. Yes, they definitely can. And, it was really important for her and my grandfather too. Stories get, everyone's narrative is a little different, but I was there. I was there. I was, I was in 10th grade, and it was a very emotional time and a really difficult time for everybody involved with the organization, my grandfather and my mom. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my mom and my grandfather made, a great deal to keep the Eagles in Philadelphia. And that's where they belong. And that's where they're going to stay. And so it's great that Philadelphia, really, truly is a blue collar town. And my grandfather and my mom both, I think, related to the working class people of Philadelphia. They were not, snotty Philadelphians. They were like, let's go sit at the bar and have a Dewar's and Perrier with the fans. And 700.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah. 700 levels of that. That's awesome. And everybody, remember the name, know the name, Susan Tose Spencer. Do your research. You heard it here, because, she's a big reason, as you said before, why this organization is still in Philadelphia and why it started out so successful.